I'm Naima. This video is all about pacing, what it is, why I resisted it for so long, and how it's helping me to recover from long COVID. It's so hard to go from never thinking about organising your life around your energy, going about your day, seeing friends, going to work, exercising, without ever having to think about energy or lack of it. Then once you get a chronic condition, you have to start seeing your energy as a limited resource. This video is going to be all about my long and complicated relationship with pacing since getting long COVID over 18 months ago. I'm not a doctor, so I can only speak from my own personal experience. If you think you might have long COVID, the first step to do before even learning how to pace is to speak to a healthcare professional. First off, what is pacing? Pacing is an energy management technique for people with chronic conditions. It's a way of working out how much or how little activity you can do without worsening your symptoms. It's an attempt to find equilibrium. It was once described to me like this. If you imagine your body like a phone battery, when you're living with a chronic condition, there are some days where you wake up and your body is at 30%. Or 20%. And on those days, it's your job not to get to zero. But I know what you're thinking. How do you find a way to not get to zero or not even get to 20% at all? Isn't that the end goal here? And it is. And that's what pacing has helped me to do. In the early months of my illness, after I'd gone through a few months of denial and not wanting to accept that my life was going to be changing forever, I had to adjust. So I started off by writing an activity journal. I'd write everything I did hour by hour. I started to notice some patterns and to notice what type of activities were tiring me out more than others. I also noticed what types of activities were helping me to recharge, helping me to feel better. And after doing that for a few weeks, I then started to rank my activities in order of energy expenditure. I used a traffic light system, so you can think of the red activities as the most exhausting. So for me, that would be anything to do with going up the stairs, walking, food shopping, anything practical. Amber are the mildly exhausting activities. So for me, that's cooking, showering, working, and then the green activities. These are the ones that help you recharge. Others like to think about this in terms of spoons. Spoon theory is a metaphor that is used to describe the amount of mental or physical energy a person has available for daily activities and tasks. I'll share a link in the bar below so you can have a look at it. But the way to think about it is that different activities take up different numbers of spoons, and every day you wake up and you think, how many spoons do I have today? And then you think about your day in terms of what can I fit in order to not deteriorate. During this time, I learned that I could do about 4 hours worth of work. I could walk 2 minutes every few days, and I could socialize for no more than 2 hours, and I could sit up for 2 hours per day. So that was my baseline. And really that is what pacing is. It's all about finding your baseline. Your baseline is the amount of activity that you can do in any given day without worsening your symptoms. And the reason why I had so many issues with pacing is that I had to unlearn everything I'd ever learned about my body. I used to do competitive sport, I used to work out, and I used to do triathlons. I had it drilled into me that if you push through, the body will adjust eventually. And that is just not how chronic conditions work. In the first few months, doctors would tell me, instead of looking for a cure, start learning to manage the symptoms. And I didn't want to do that because it meant admitting that this was going to be long term. This wasn't just an illness that would pass from one day to the next. I was almost hoping that I would wake up and not have to pace anymore and I would just be better. And slowly I've learned that the only way that I will get better is by pacing. Another challenging thing that it took me a while to realize, only until recently, is that energy isn't only physical, and long COVID isn't only a physical condition. We have different energy sources like mental energy, psychological energy, physical energy. All of the activity that you do in these different buckets contribute towards the condition. It's much easier to quantify physical energy, but it's much more difficult when it's mental energy. One thing that I've definitely learned in this period is that the only way I will get better is by pacing. And here are a few of the tips that are working for me now. I try and do more or less the same amount of activity every day. If for some reason I do more activity one day, I then have a day where I do a lot less to offset that previous spike in activity. I keep track of the number of calories I burn, the number of steps I do, my heart rate and how it varies day to day. And every few months I try and reassess to see if I'm improving, and if so, why. It's difficult to know what is helping, but I can often see what isn't helping, what is making me worse, or what is the type of activity that I might need to rethink for next month. I'm learning to accept that recovery isn't linear and that there will be setbacks along the way. Even if I do relapse or I have deterioration of symptoms, it doesn't mean that I'm starting from scratch again. And whatever I think that I can do in a given day, I try and halve it. I always think that I'm further along in my recovery than I actually am. If you have a chronic condition or you have long COVID as well, what are some of your top tips for pacing? And what are some of the things that you found tricky when it comes to working out what you can and can't do on a given day? I also made a video about the relapse and remitting nature of long COVID, which is what makes it so difficult to know how to pace. Be sure to check that out if you haven't already. And if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a good rest of the day.